let's continue this discussion about who is most likely to be the next Prime Minister, but also when are we going to head to the polls? This is the question we're all asking. I'm joined now by the Director of Government Relations in Canberra, Head of Bondi Partners, Phil Hudson, and former long-term political journalist. Phil, great to see you. Look, you wrote a terrific piece in the Daily Telegraph talking about the most likely dates for the federal election. Can you run us through them?
Well, thanks, Sharri, and it's great to be with your viewers. Look, it's the great guessing game, isn't it, that we have whenever an election comes round, except this time we've got a bit of a budget twist. But as we get closer and closer, and there's a deadline on this, a constitutional deadline, it's really coming down now to two choices. I think either we're going to be having an election on April 12 or we're going to have an election on one of the first 3 Saturdays in May. Now, of course, there are other possibilities, but I think they are a lot less likely. The Prime Minister's made it clear that Parliament's going to come back for 2 weeks in February. And just following on from the discussion that you just had, I think that's really going to be important for both leaders to use the Parliament to try and gee up the troops, get their own confidence going, start to put down some heavy markers. Of course, the Prime Minister's got a big speech this Friday, which there's a lot of expectation about him using that to properly kick off the year, even though they've both been out and about. And I sort of think, so we're in the election. Where are those dates? I mean, there are a lot of dates that are blocked out. WA election, there was talk last year about it being moved. I don't think it's going to be moved.
That's scheduled, of course, for the 8th of March.
Which is also a long weekend in half the country. I think has been forgotten by many people. There's a Grand Prix in Victoria. These things matter when they're trying to work out the good time to go. Easter is unusually late, which is what opens April 12 up to being a real option. April 12 means there's no budget. The May options mean there is a budget. And the Treasurer was out and about today making his case about how he thinks the government has performed. And he has a pretty good line there. He says they've brought down 2 surplus budgets, improve the state of the budget by $200 billion. Why would they want to have another budget and risk it being in deficit and the story not being as clear cut? Now, it's not working with voters, but a more messy message may not work either.
Phil, I also want to ask you about this.
That is the resources. Yeah.
Before you go, I also want to ask you about this possibility of a rate cut, because that had been something at least senior Labor figures were hoping for, so that Labor could say, look, the inflation crisis is over, we're on the way back to a more affordable way of life, proof that they were making inroads. How likely do you think a rate cut is looking?
Chair, it seems to change what the experts say depending on each additional piece of data. The value of the dollar's taken a fall and then a little bit of a bounce back. There's a Reserve Bank board meeting in mid-February, then there's one right at the start of April. Look, it's a big gamble. This is probably a very big gamble for the Prime Minister if he thinks that he wants to wait for a rate cut. That might not happen. There is going to be a change in the composition of the Reserve Bank board for that April meeting. Whether the new board members are any more convinced of the need for a rate cut. Look, it's a hard one to pick, that one.
Yeah.
And I think the government would dearly love a rate cut, but I don't think they can. I don't think in their calculations they're going to put that one in the banked column.
All right, so your firm favourite, April 12, to head to the polls. Phil Hudson, great to have you on the show.